Lando Norris's title charge momentum builds as the Briton fronts a McLaren 1-2 in qualifying for the Italian Grand Prix. As for Red Bull, well, the pressure continues to mount on Max Verstappen as the Dutchman fronts a fourth row lockout for Red Bull. From Racing News 365, my name is Nick Golding, and I'm joined, as always, by lead editor Ian Parks. Ian, we've got to start with Lando because he has picked up exactly from where he left off in Zandvoort by claiming pole position. He has said himself he needs to be leading every single race for the remainder of the season to take the fight to Max. And with Verstappen qualifying down in P7, we've been saying that there will come a race where Max won't necessarily have a good one, and if Lando wins, the point swing could be monumental. It feels like now with Lando on pole and Max in P7, this could be the big chance for Lando and for McLaren to really pull a big swing on Max and Red Bull in the championship.
Yeah, of course, we've been talking about this title fight. Lando, Max, is there really one? Surely the gap's too big. It'd be the biggest points overhaul in Formula One under the current point structure that started back in 2010. 46 was the biggest going back a few years ago. Now, coming out of Belgium, that points total, I think, was 78. Now it's down to 70. And even then, you've got to think, 9 Grand Prix, 3 sprints. It's still surely too much. It'd be fantastic if it all went all the way down to the wire. But right now, we're just talking about it because we're trying to build it up a little bit, because that's what we want as Formula One fans. We want this great title fight. And you're thinking, it's surely too much. Well, now, on the back of this, you've got to think that if Lando finishes where he does, if Max finishes where he does, we're looking at a total of 1, 2, 4. I'm trying to work it out off the top of my head. 17 points. 18 points if you got fastest lap. That would whittle it down to 52, 53 potentially. And then you start to slowly think, game on, because we've seen what McLaren as a team has done to Red Bull in the constructors' way. It's slowly come down bit by bit. You thought the gap, surely Red Bull's got too much here, but no. We've seen that gap come down bit by bit. Is Lando now going to do the same to Max bit by bit as these races tick by? And are we going to get that big title showdown going into the last 2-3 Grand Prix of this season? Lots to play for, of course. They always say, it's a long race. Every Grand Prix is a long race. This one's slightly shorter in terms of time. We're probably only looking about an hour and 20 minutes. A lot could still happen. McLaren front row lockout. How's he going to be played going down into that first chicane? Of course, McLaren has had its start problems. Lando's not been the best with his starts. Oscar had his issues back in Zandvoort, of course. The 1-3 there back in Zandvoort for those two guys. They came out the first corner pretty much 2-4. So there's still much that can happen. But at this stage, yes, it is most definitely advantage McLaren, that's for sure.
And of course, it is such a long run down to turn 1, as you've just mentioned. McLaren have had some issues with their start, so this is the one place they don't want that. However, on the occasion, if they do have a good start, there is a massive opportunity here for Lando and for McLaren in both championships. Andrea Stella, McLaren team principal, previously has very much said, it's too early for team orders. We will not be doing that. Zach Brown, interestingly speaking on Sky Sports F1, said that if a situation arises, then yes, we want both championships. Given where Lando is starting, given where Max is starting, and one of the big reasons why we've always kind of ruled out a title fight is that whenever Lando is finished ahead of Max, it's normally by maximum 1 or 2 positions. Given the chance McLaren has and where Max is starting, do you think this will be the time where we potentially see, depending on what happens coming out of that first chicane, McLaren putting in some team orders?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. Now, we're doing this video update at 7:45 local time. Now, I've just come out of Andrea Stella's media session post-qualifying that literally finished just 20 minutes ago as I'm speaking. And I asked him the question quite specifically, what are the instructions to the guys to ensure that you come out of that first chicane, which, as we all know, we've seen many incidents going through that first chicane, previous Grand Prix, Italian Grand Prix starts, to ensure that you maintain 1-2. Obviously, they've got to get the starts right, first of all. But if they do that, as you mentioned, long run down. Andrea's answer to my question was that obviously, as McLaren drivers, regardless of who is around them, they always try and take care to ensure that they don't damage the car. And his instruction will be to those guys, if that car is papaya, you take even more care, because the last thing that they want coming out of what has been a fantastic qualifying day for the team is for either driver to come out of it with damage to their cars, should there be any kind of contact of any description. That would be an absolute disaster for the team. So they've got to come out of that turn one chicane, regardless of whether it's Oscar in front of Lando, Lando in front of Oscar. They've got to maintain that 1-2 position. That's going to be the key. And then and only then can McLaren start to look at how the race is going to unfold. But as I say, even if they come out of that first chicane 1-2, even if they come out of that first lap 1-2, there is still going to be so much to play for, because the conditions here, the new tarmac, a lot of graining the drivers have been talking about. All the teams are going to have to see how they manage that graining. There's even talk that what is ordinarily always been a one-stop race, simply because of the length of the pit stop here, may yet become two-stop because of the situation with the tyres. That would be something else that the teams have got to manage, and throws another factor into the equation of just how this race might end up unfolding by the end of the checker flag.
Absolutely, and I think Red Bull would probably quite like that, given they produced a 1.95 second pit stop during FP3 of all times. Let's discuss Red Bull, because some quite interesting lines having come out from Max Verstappen, from Christian Horner. 7th and 8th for Max and Checo. It's Max's worst qualifying performance since the Italian Grand Prix 2022. Christian Horner has openly conceded there is a fundamental issue with the RB20. Quite extraordinarily, Max's fastest lap in qualifying came in Q2 on what were a set of scrub soft tyres. It's absolutely crazy what's happened to Red Bull, because in FP3, Max looks competitive again in Q1, but all of a sudden in Q3, you had Perez kicking up a load of gravel at the second Lesmo, and Max again, the car just not doing what he's wanting. This has got to be now a massive concern for Red Bull, that they know they do have this fundamental issue, and there are a lot of races coming up very, very quickly. It's not a lot of time to find a solution to fix it.
Yeah, this is their serious alarm bells ringing inside Red Bull. As you said, Q2, Max was second quickest, I believe, on a set of scrub softs. Only Lewis Hamilton ahead of him. Q3, brand new set of softs, finished a third of a second slower. How? Why? Max is perplexed. In his own words, he turned around and said what he experienced with the balance of the car coming out of Q2, going into Q3, was something he has never experienced in his F1 career so far. So if that is happening to him and that car, with the team so far unable to provide any answers as to these balance issues, and just to make a quick point on that, we've heard a lot about these balance issues most recently. Jos Verstappen has come out and stirred up a bit of a hornet's nest again, as he loves to do, by turning around and saying that he did an interview with a Dutch radio station, I believe, and he turned around and said that actually Max raised these balance issues early in the season, even when the car was performing well, as we know, when Max was on a good run of form, produced those victories early in the season that's allowed him to carry this big points gap across the remainder of the season. Jos said that those balance issues were prevalent at the time. Max raised them, and he says that Red Bull ignored them. So here we go. 2/3 of the way into the season now, we pretty much are. Now Red Bull is all of a sudden finding itself with this massive problem that apparently Max had raised at the very start of the season, well, early-ish in the season, shall we say, not at the very start. So words going unheeded there. Now Red Bull would appear to be reaping the bad rewards of that, shall we say.
And of course, if there's ever a time when Max needs a phenomenal start, it is on Sunday, given from P7, if there's any chance that, given the long run, he could find himself within the top 5 going into the first chicane. And actually, a word as well for Sergio Perez, given the issues there clearly are with the RB20. We've seen at times that when Red Bull have been struggling, there's been quite a big time difference between Max and Checo. Checo in P8, Max in P7. Actually, that's quite respectable for Perez, given the issues that Red Bull do have.
Respectable for Perez, but as the 4th quickest team,
Yeah, well,
nowhere near respectable for Red Bull, because obviously, just to clarify, folks, ahead of Max in P7 is 2 McLarens, 2 Ferraris, both Mercedes. So it's not like there's an anomalous Haas or an Alpine or an Aston Martin ahead of Max that he knows he's really probably going to sail past. No, he's got both drivers in the Mercedes, the Ferrari, and the McLaren ahead of him to try and get past. Now, Andrea Stella believes Red Bull will be a bit more competitive in the Grand Prix. However, he's tempered that by saying that it's not what is on that Red Bull at the moment, that RB20 for this weekend, is not the optimum package that he would like. We know that Red Bull is not running with a Monza-specific rear wing, which ordinarily every team brings to this type of circuit. Red Bull doesn't have one. And Max turned around and said in the pen post-qualifying that what they have been having to do over the course of practice during qualifying is continually trim bits of the wing off to try and make it more aerodynamically competitive. So we were now going to have to see what that means going through into the Grand Prix on Sunday. Will he be able to make up positions? It's going to be tough ask. He might be able to make up 2 or 3. Will he be able to get on the podium at this stage? That's going to be one of our bold predictions, Nick, if we really want to stick our neck out at the end of this video update, that's for sure.
I need to start thinking about a prediction then. Let's talk about Mercedes, because very contrasting fortunes. George Russell, given how little running he completed on Friday, a tremendous job to put his Mercedes in P3. Lewis Hamilton on what's been quite an emotional day for Lewis, and we'll obviously discuss why P6. Obviously, he did top Q2, and I think for many people were thinking, okay, this could be Lewis on the front row here. It's been an emotional day for Lewis because the day kickstarted with Mercedes announcing his replacement, Andrea Kimi Antonelli. We all knew it was going to happen, which was a matter of when, and they've gone and announced it. The first time, obviously, in Lewis's career that Mercedes have announced a driver replacing him. It's where he's been since 2013. Obviously, the company themselves have supported him since he was just a teenager. Came out after qualifying to Sky saying he was furious with his performance and that Mercedes deserves better. You can see that it's been an emotional day for him. You could kind of see it in the way, in himself, that it's been an interesting one.
Yeah, and people might be wondering, well, why so emotional? You know, he's okay. Yeah, we know he's going. He's been going since February 1st. Well, even longer than that, of course. But that was when the official announcement came back. He would have known before then that he was going to go to Ferrari, but February 1st was the official confirmation. So that's when it's been in the public domain. So all this time, why all of a sudden now, on the day that Andrea Kimi Antonelli is finally announced as the Mercedes driver for 2025, replacing Lewis Hamilton in the hot seat, of course, should Lewis feel so emotional? Well, Lewis admitted himself that yes, whilst he has known for quite some time that Andrea would be replacing him, this was almost with that confirmation coming out at 9 o'clock local time this morning, and he pretty much woke up to that. It was the realization, this dawning realization, well, actually, my time is now starting to come to an end. And I asked him, well, I asked him, as I say, why emotional on this occasion? You know, is it going to be this? How's it going to be over the remaining 9 races? And he said, well, as each race has passed by, they've all been emotional because he knows that the clock has been counting down towards his departure. And as he was talking at the time, you could see, and he was going on about just how much this team has always meant to him, always will mean to him. And quite obviously so. It's given him 6 of his 7 world titles, of course. But now, with this official confirmation that this young wonder kid is going to be taking his place, as I say, this is part of this dawning realization now that he's going to be going within just over 3 months' time That's what we're looking at now. We've got the final Grand Prix of the season. I think it's December 9, if I remember right off the top of my head, in Abu Dhabi. So just over 3 months for Lewis now. This is the countdown, but Kimi, for him being announced, was quite a big moment that, yes, his time is now really coming to an end with Mercedes.
And of course, we all know that Hamilton is joining Ferrari. It was that announcement that's kick-started a pretty crazy driver market this year. Ferrari didn't do too bad today. Charles Leclerc in fourth, Carlos Sainz in fifth. It seems like they actually do have quite a good pace. And you've mentioned, obviously, earlier on just how competitive so many teams are. Ferrari are a team who could compete for the podium potentially.
Yeah, they've introduced a new floor here, remember, as well. And both Charles and Carlos were asked post-qualifying as to whether that had any effect on the performance. Notably, of course, we've discussed the previous issues that they've had with this considerable amount of bouncing after that second major upgrade was introduced at the Spanish Grand Prix that really didn't work. Both drivers felt a lot more comfortable in the car, Carlos admitting that the bouncing was actually much, much lower. Of course, the circuit has been resurfaced, as we know, so it's way smoother. So they're probably going to get a better idea at a circuit like Baku, where, of course, we know we've got that long straight that's on a street circuit where we know there are bumps. So let's see how the floor and the car performs there more particularly. But at least for this weekend, yes, more competitive. Both felt they could have done better. Both felt they could have got more out of the car. But for right now, they're happy. They're both looking forward. They're not looking back. They're not concerned at Red Bull behind them. They want podium places because they want to lift the roof, metaphorically, of course, off this place.
Absolutely. And just very quickly, before we do our bold predictions, going through the top 10 on the grid, it's Lando Norris on pole, Piastri in second, Russell and Leclerc in third and fourth, Sainz in fifth, Hamilton in sixth, Verstappen and Perez in seventh and eighth. Alex Albon in a tremendous P9 for Williams. His new rookie teammate, Franco Colapinto, unfortunately knocked out in Q1 and made a mistake at the second Lesmo. He'll start P18. And Nico Hulkenberg, once again, doing a tremendous job for Haas in P10. Ian, bold predictions, and you obviously gave a little hint towards one, and actually I'm going to take it. I've got a feeling Max will get a podium, but I think Oscar Piastri is going to win the race.
And I'm going the other way. Max won't be on the podium, so that's my prediction for you. I don't think Red Bull. There are so many fundamental issues with that RB20 that I really don't think that they've got the car to get Max on the podium unless something ahead of him happens that allows him to neck up those places. That can't be ruled out, of course. So much can happen during the course of this Grand Prix. We've seen many an incident here in the past. So I'm actually going to go for McLaren maintaining their 1-2. And I'm going to go Lando ahead of Oscar as that 1-2. I'm going to go for Charles on the podium alongside the two McLaren drivers. I did at least get one of my two predictions correct on Friday after practice. I thought a Ferrari would be on the front row. Didn't quite happen. I did say Franco would not be on the back row. That at least came true. He starts down in 18th, just ahead of both stake drivers. He did make a big mistake, and for a moment there you thought, oh my God, we've got another Logan Sargent moment looming. But he brilliantly saved the car. Alex Albon, really complimentary about the job that Franco has done so far. Says he's really sharp, he's really on it, he's really helping the engineers, he's asking them the right sort of questions. So at least from Alex's point of view, he's doing well with regard to the first couple of days he's had in the cockpit of that Williams so far. What he can do in the race is going to be another matter. 34 degrees temperature we're expecting here tomorrow. It's going to be a real hot one for those guys. Even for the sort of drivers coming out of that have been coming out of Q1 that hadn't had that long a car. Boy, they'd already looked like they'd done a Grand Prix. Never. So goodness knows what they're going to look like after they've done a proper Grand Prix here on Sunday. But at the moment, yeah, 1, 2, 3, Lando, Oscar, Charles, and Franco Colapinto. I reckon he's going to be pushing. I think he's going to be somewhere about 12, 13. So there you go. That's my prediction for Franco.
Good stuff. And I think the one thing we can guarantee is that it looks like the race is going to be absolutely phenomenal. For those who are watching, be sure to let us know your predictions in the comment section below. This has been the post-qualifying F1 update from myself and Ian. We will see you after the race on Sunday. See you later.
And as always, take care, folks.